Most games will introduce you to the villain and make it your clear goal to stop them. Most games, even if they let the player make moral choices, will push the player into morally correct paths. Undertale does something completely different. It gives you the standard RPG setup, fighting enemies, leveling up, and collecting weapons. Undertale never forces you into any moral choices, so you could kill everyone or you could kill nobody. This makes Undertale unique, because the game never stops you from being evil. It will lightly push back against the player, but if the player wanted to, they could easily keep deciding to kill everything and become the villain. If you have never heard of Undertale or played it, it is an RPG made by Toby Fox where you play as a human child that fell into an underground world. This underground is inhabited by monsters, each of them having unique personalities. The player traverses through various areas as the monsters try to stop them because they are human, and they need the human soul to be free of the underground. Unlike traditional RPGs, Undertale lets you choose how you interact with enemies. Instead of being forced to kill enemies for rewards, you can also spare them, or simply interact with them. Because of this, you don't have to kill enemies to progress the game. This gives the player full agency over the world, as they can be a good person or a bad person. Undertale allows the player to choose either of these choices, and these choices have a meaningful outcome on the game. Most players will not reach one of the extreme endings on their first playthrough. They will usually get a neutral ending, which is when they spare and kill monsters instead of staying on just one path. This is the natural outcome of the game, since players will likely be experimenting with the game's mechanics, and they won't stick to one path. The pacifist route requires you to spare every monster you encounter. You don't have to spare every monster, as you can flee, but you are not allowed to kill any monsters. You also aren't required to explore and encounter every monster, as the game doesn't force you to spare each and every monster. In the no mercy route, you do the opposite of the pacifist route and kill every monster you can. This isn't just killing monsters that you happen to encounter, but instead actively seeking out every monster until there are literally none left. You are not allowed to leave a specific area until every monster that you can kill is dead, or the route will be abandoned. Due to these requirements, the no mercy route is almost never an accident. A player will only accidentally complete neutral routes, and maybe even pacifist routes, but the no mercy route requires the intentional commitment of killing every last monster. To start the no mercy route, all the player must do differently is kill every monster. At first, the game doesn't feel any different from normal. Enemies will appear normally, and the game is mildly challenging to start, just as it should be. As the player continues to kill monsters in the ruins, this slowly changes. The game changes in many disturbing ways that are meant to discourage the player. Encounters become less frequent, making the player feel like they are killing all the monsters. Eventually, they stop completely, and the music is replaced with an unsettling track. You are then just met with the message, but nobody came instead of the normal encounter. These changes make the game feel empty, which supports the fact that the player is emptying the underground of all of its monsters. Undertale shows the player the consequences of their actions, but it does not force them to choose the right path like most games would. If the player wants, they can easily continue down this no mercy path. In most RPGs, violence leads to a reward. This can be in the form of experience points, stronger items, new abilities, and overall progression. In these RPGs, violence is crucial to the gameplay, and it is a core mechanic of the game that motivates players to continue moving forward. Undertale appears to be no different, as you can gain experience points from killing enemies. This makes the no mercy route seem like the most efficient and rewarding way to play the game. However, as the player continues down this route, the enemies will stop being any challenge. Most enemies will die in just a few hits, and it does not feel rewarding anymore. The game also loses many monster interactions, since most monsters will just avoid the player. Money also becomes useless, as the shopkeepers either disappear or refuse service to the player. After the game takes all these features away, all that is left is the constant loop of killing monsters and gaining experience points. This means the player is no longer on the no mercy route for efficiency or rewards. At this point, the player is continuing the route for no reason other than the fact that they can. The player is not locked in the no mercy route until the end of the game. There are constant opportunities where the game tries to convince the player to give up the no mercy route. At almost any point, a monster can be spared, and the no mercy route will immediately be abandoned. The most obvious example of the game giving an opportunity to abandon the route is when they fight Papyrus. When the player finally encounters Papyrus at the end of Snowden, he doesn't even try and fight them. He simply asks for the player to spare him. If the player chooses not to, there is no tricks. Papyrus will die in a single hit, and there will be no satisfaction for beating him. It is at this point where the no mercy route is not just a gameplay route, but a deliberate choice to slaughter the monsters of the underground. Since the player gains so much experience in this route, they are much stronger than they are supposed to be, and they can kill most monsters easily. This makes it seem that the game doesn't offer any challenge in this route, with even the bosses being easy and boring. This is true except for Undyne and Sans. These bosses are much harder than the neutral and pacifist bosses. This advanced difficulty in these bosses is not a fun challenge for the player, but it is meant to make them quit. They test the player and resist the path they have chosen. Up until now, the only resistance has been boring the player, but now the player must push through with real effort. In this way, these bosses are not rewards, but punishments, as they challenge how committed the player is to the route. If the player manages to get past these bosses, they are continuing forward because they are persistent, not because it is rewarding or fun. At this point, the player is no longer just reacting to the game and following its intended path. They are acting independently just to complete the game, despite all its incentives being removed. In this way, the player is simply choosing to kill all of the monsters because they can. They are not misguided, as they are given many chances to abort the mission if they wanted to. They are also not rewarded for choosing this path, as the rewards are stripped from this route. The only thing that is left is the gameplay loop of killing all the monsters, with no challenge or rewards. This is what differentiates the no mercy route from regular RPG violence. Most RPGs reward the player for their violence, either with currency or with items. They also may justify the player's violence and make it seem necessary. In the no mercy route for Undertale, the violence is completely unjustified and is only being done because the player wants to do it. This is what makes the player morally evil. This is because the player willingly kills all of the monsters, even though they have no good reason to do so. The game will not stop the player from doing this, but the game will judge them and try and make them feel bad for what they did. The no mercy route is not just about the player, but how the game responds to their actions as well. In most games, the player is the hero no matter what. Even if they make bad choices, the narrative either ignores them or makes them seem justified. Undertale does not do this. It does not defend or justify their actions, but instead judges them for their actions. As previously mentioned, most monsters will no longer want to interact with the player, but some of those that still do will be disgusted with their actions and will judge them for their choices. These characters are no longer just saying lines of dialogue, they are speaking on the player's behavior. These dialogues make the player's actions feel morally wrong. The monsters also will treat the player as evil. The game never explicitly says the player is the villain, but characters will fear them. This shows that the monsters think the player has bad intentions. These monsters' reactions are not a misunderstanding or just random fear, as monsters don't usually act like this in other routes. It is a direct response to what the player did. These monsters are scared of the player because they think they are evil and are out to hurt them. Undertale doesn't create a villain. It gives the player a choice, and it gives them the freedom to make it on their own. Nothing forces the player to kill the monsters. In fact, it tries to stop the player from doing this. If the player pushes on despite the game's efforts, it is because of their pure determination to do so, and not because the game rewards them. This makes the player morally evil and the villain of Undertale in this route.